today. A year after the withdrawal of the Soviet Union, the most allied of allies becomes the most sanctioned of countries in the world. A year later, the President Amendment comes in by the US, and we are told, you are now out of our orbit. Not only that, we are not even going to allow any arms sales or any concessions, even when we were buying from our own money. For those of you who don't know, Pakistan bought F-16s from the US, Pakistan getting F-16s and assistance. Through the 90s, there were F-16s that Pakistan had paid for, parked in a desert in New Mexico. The Americans refused to give us the F-16s, charged us parking fee, and ultimately gave us soybean oil for those F-16s. And the soybean oil did not fly, even if we tried. This was the 1990s. Going from moral equivalent of the founding fathers to Pakistan being the ally to suddenly Pakistan is the isolated ex-ally and now sanctioned country, and nobody was. 3 years the government held, the government that the Soviets had left, held. In 1993 the president was ousted, in fact killed, and the civil war started in earnest. There was already violence, but civil war started in earnest. Afghanistan basically went to hell in a handbasket. It was a total collapse of any semblance of stability in the country. The Taliban were formed in Kandahar, which is the southern city of Afghanistan, in a small mosque. These were religious devotees, many of them born in Pakistan as Afghan refugees. The refugees that we did not bring into Pakistan, but were forced upon us. And we, of course, they are brothers and sisters, and we did take care of them, but we did have to deal with that, and these people were born there. A lot of conversation about Pakistan creating. Let me just say this much about the Taliban. At the time, the only thing that the Afghans cared about was stopping open rape on the streets of Afghanistan and making sure that people could wake up and sleep without being murdered. This was the only conversation in that Afghanistan. That's the level of the civil war. So today it's very easy to turn around and say, oh, Pakistan supported the Taliban. Pakistan only supported some semblance of stability in Afghanistan at the time, where there was no option, refugees coming over, and between 1980 and 1996, those 5 million refugees, not their fault, but the border brought in gun trotting, narco trafficking, and crime in Pakistan. We had never seen those things before in the way that they came into Pakistan. This was the reality of the 90s that the world very easily forgets. In any case, the Taliban take over most of the country. The rest is history, and we get to 9/11. What happened? Why have I gone through all of this for you? On 9/11 dawned a reality which was then formally acknowledged by the US President George Bush and many other Western leaders. Number one, a mistake was made by abandoning Afghanistan and Pakistan. Why? Because it left a security vacuum that was filled by what was later called Al-Qaeda and many other names, the terrorists or the freedom fighters of yesteryear. How could that happen? Because Afghanistan was in total chaos. It was free for all, everybody and anybody was there, tons of money was flowing into Afghanistan and being used for whatever purposes, but there was a major security vacuum. Second, and please note this point, for the average Afghan, they had been betrayed. They had been used, abused, and thrown away. And the sentiment in Pakistan was not much different. Here is a country that suffered so much, fought, 1 million Afghans lost their lives, all these refugees, millions in Pakistan, and Charlie Wilson's War, if anybody has seen the movie or read, it was, I think, $50 million or $5 million maybe that he'd gone back to ask for from the US president, who said, I've had enough of Afghanistan, thank you very much. The result is exactly what we saw. This betrayal, for those of you who come from the Western countries, this part of the world does not forget betrayal. Keep this in mind. It does not forget how it was treated. And then what was talked about, I lived in the US for about 15 years, every time in the policy circles the conversation was, we made a huge mistake by breaking ties with the Pakistani military. We could not understand what was going on on the ground. We had lost touch with the local dynamics of Afghanistan. This is the US speaking and the Western world speaking. And so all of this essentially, as far as the West was concerned, was a non-issue. Abandonment, betrayal, no contact with the ground, intelligence or otherwise. And so the West had become, for the people in Afghanistan, from the leading patron who financed and fought the war to an untrusted, selfish foreign power. I'm telling you of the mind of the people in Afghanistan. I'm not claiming that this is correct or incorrect. This whole presentation is really relaying to you